Now, before we dive into this start of the week, I think it is actually important to expand the gospel a little bit from what we heard just here. We're used to hearing this part of the gospel with the cloaks being thrown down, or the palms, and Jesus riding the colt or the donkey, and the celebration and the hosannas, or the blessed be the one who comes in the name of the Lord. But there's a piece that comes immediately after this that makes it a little less jarring as we enter this walk of Holy Week. And I do wish I had worn better glasses for today, because these words are very small. I tell you, he replied, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. As he approached Jerusalem and saw the city, he wept over it and said, if you, even you, had only known on this day what would bring you peace. But now it is hidden from our eyes. The days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you and hem you in on every side. They will dash you to the ground, you and the children hidden within your walls. They will not leave one stone on another, because you did not recognize the time of God's coming to you. Then he entered the temple area and began driving out those who were selling. It is written, he said to them, my house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. Every day he was teaching in the temple, but the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the leaders among the people were trying to kill him. Yet they could not find any way to do it, because all the people hung on his words. This is the gospel of the Lord. Leaves you with a little bit of a different feeling, doesn't it? Oh, now I want to see you. There you are. It's a little bit of a different feeling than leaving us with this triumphal entry where we're waving our palms or our cloaks or whatever it is that we can find, where we're shouting out to the King of Kings. We can't forget what comes next, because that's only part of the story. Jesus entering Jerusalem on the donkey or the colt is the triumphal entry to Jesus really mixing things up, really getting into the face of those in authority and really showing them the power that his words have had on the people. Now, for you, those of you who don't know me, I've been the canon missioner for the last 8 years. I left that position in November, and I've been working in the Woodland View School over in Kirkintilloch for the last several months. It's a school for those with additional special needs, and I have been really loving it. There are some fabulous kids there. It's really, 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 really hard work, maybe more than I was banking on, but it has been enlightening and enlivening. And last week, I was in a class, and I am a classroom assistant, a support for learning assistant. My job is to scaffold the environment so that the students can achieve to their highest level, to support the teachers so that the students in the class can all learn on their appropriate level. And the teacher was doing the religious education lesson on Holy Week, and she had a priest in the classroom. And lest you think she didn't know I was a priest, the school decided when they saw my application that the first thing they should ask me to do a month after I started was to lead the assembly at Christmas. So I could not hide. They definitely outed me from day one. And so this wonderful teacher, spectacular teacher, pulled up the lesson that was on one of these online platforms and kind of glanced at me. And I just shook my head and she dove in. And the lesson went through the whole path of Holy Week. And it started with Jesus on the donkey and the palms and the walking forward and the Last Supper and Judas's kiss. And then, of course, Jesus dragging his cross. And one of the students in this cartoon picture that I should have sent, I forgot you have such wonderful technology, but picture in your minds a cartoon Jesus with a huge heavy cross with townsfolk scattered around with angry and confused faces on. And the student sitting next to me said, "Where is God? Where is God?" And I have to confess, I don't remember the rest of the lesson because I knew he had just written my sermon for me. Where is God? That's what we're all kind of asking this whole week, isn't it? And we can skip ahead to next Sunday and have our lilies and our joy and our white and our egg hunts and all of those things. But we can't unless we ask and answer the question, where is God? I think that's the question all of us are asking ourselves pretty much every day, isn't it? There are some days that maybe it's a little bit louder than other days, but as we go through what can be the monotony of life, as we see the beautiful sunny days that will not last, but good gracious, have we been enjoying them? As we wonder 2 months into summer where the sun has gone, as we wait at the till for those robotic checkouts to do their thing, getting a little more frustrated with each beep that we hear, or as we hear chaos and screaming of children who are having such a great time, but we are oh so tired. Where is God? As we sit at home wishing that more folks would come to visit us, because we used to see so many people, but where have they gone? Where is God? As we long for the things that our bodies used to be able to do, and now they're kind of letting us down. Where is God? It's the question of our lives, really. And it's a question that's easier to answer on some days rather than others. But this week especially, in the eyes of a student who is brilliant in his own way, the question that came out is the question that I have been sitting with for this last week. If we feel like we are in a desert, where is God? If we are watching the news and watching persecution happen in real time, persecution that mirrors what we have seen in our history books and have vowed will never happen again, where is God? Where is God? When our politicians tell us, don't worry, this will make everything okay, where is God? Where is God when we cry out and ask why more folks aren't coming across the threshold and filling up the pews because there is good news to share? Where is God? When we are tired and weary, where is God? Well, I tell you something. As somebody who has taken a little bit of a vacation from church over the last few weeks, needing to take a step back to reimagine what does my priesthood look like when I'm working in a secular world. God is right here. The reason I knew I could say yes to Paul very enthusiastically without consulting my spouse first was because I miss looking out and seeing God in all of your faces. When I used to commute into the city to go to my office, one of my favorite games on the train, and some of you may have heard of this game before because it has been my favorite game for about 25 years. When I'm on public transportation, I don't like to read a book or get lost in my phone. I like to glance at the faces that I see around me. Not in a creepy way, I promise. Just long enough to say, okay, if we are the heart and hands of Christ in this world, where do we see God? And it takes only a second. And honestly, even in people that maybe I don't like so much in my day-to-day life, sometimes the thing I need to do most is glance at them and say, oh, but there it is. There's God. And it makes it a whole lot more challenging to be angry with someone, to hold a grudge, to dismiss them, when we recognize the intrinsic value that God has given to our friends and our neighbors. Now, where the challenge for me in this game lies is, what about those folks I see on the news that are doing things that feel irredeemable to me? Where is God with the pain and the destruction and everything around us? Where is God when an innocent man hauls a cross up a mountain on which he will die? Where is God when an innocent citizen is deported to the most notorious jail in a gang-ridden country? Where is God when a new Scot arrives on our shores and is given only $6 a week to live on? Where is God? I don't have an answer for you. Spoiler alert, they don't teach us this at seminary. But what I do have is the offer to walk alongside you as we look. I am seeking out God in each moment of every day, just like everybody else here. And I find that the key in my life is to find glimpses. They may be fleeting, but they're there. Because the unknowable and all-powerful God who we love and who loved us enough to send his Son is also there. In times of struggle with my own faith, when my spiritual advisors have said to me, well, where are you with God? The one constant I have always been able to say is, I know God's there. Even if I'm angry with God, even if I wish things were a little bit different, even if it seems like the world is crumbling around me, I have always been able to say, at least I know God is there. And so in this week, when God is so palpably present, when God is asking us to accompany God's own self on the ultimate journey through death into everlasting life, I hope you'll join me in asking yourself the question, where is God? Both in the midst of this story, but also today, in this place, at this time, at St. James, in our communities. And what's more than that, moving ahead after we get the joy of next Sunday. Maybe we can ask ourselves also, now that we see where God is, what does God need me to do so that others can see God too? A blessed Holy Week to you all. Amen.